Every currency you know collapses through hidden, unspoken stages. Currencies seem stable and dependable, but beneath lies deep tension. Hidden flaws erode trust beneath the surface, weakening the system. Pressure mounts as these flaws worsen, straining the currency's limits. Then comes the point of no return. Collapse becomes unstoppable. Today, these patterns reveal early warnings before disaster strikes. Governments continued to borrow and print money to cover debts and social programs, quietly increasing both debt and inflationary pressures without immediate backlash from the public. The delayed consequences of these policies created a fragile financial foundation destined to fracture. The mark's value eroded progressively, unnoticed by most in day-to-day transactions, where prices seemed stable but slowly climbed over months and years. This creeping inflation was a harbinger of deeper systemic troubles, yet it was often dismissed as normal economic fluctuation. This gradual erosion set the stage for an inevitable collapse. The hidden injuries, debts, and distortions mounted like an invisible iceberg beneath the water. The surface appeared calm, but beneath, dangerous forces worked relentlessly to weaken the currency. This is where the system begins to break. Structural incentives push the currency closer to failure instead of stability, rewarding behaviors that provide short-term relief but long-term damage. Despite these risks, faith in fiat money persists widely, grounded in tradition, legal enforcement, and lack of alternatives. But this faith, while stabilizing in the short term, can falter quickly as pressures mount and cracks appear. Currency collapse is not an accident or mysterious event. It follows a clear, repeatable pattern that can be studied and anticipated by those who understand the economic forces at play. Understanding this pattern helps identify weaknesses early, long before they become irreversible and destructive. This knowledge provides a crucial advantage in navigating financial risks. At the core lies a hidden flaw: debt accumulation. Governments often borrow extensively to fund spending that outpaces revenue. This borrowing becomes an almost invisible force, pushing the currency towards instability. This borrowing creates incentives to delay difficult fiscal decisions and to avoid austerity measures that might be unpopular in the short term, despite their necessity for long-term health. Debt becomes a political tool, masking long-term costs from voters and enabling continued spending beyond means, often justified for immediate benefits or social programs. Deficits grow year after year as governments spend beyond their tax revenues, creating a growing imbalance that pressures the currency's foundation more with each cycle. Political pressures discourage tough fiscal choices that might harm short-term popularity or re-election chances, trapping governments in a cycle of avoiding necessary reforms. This cycle of spending and borrowing gradually undermines currency stability. Each iteration adds layers of risk, making recovery harder and collapse more likely. This is the critical breaking point. The currency system rewards the wrong incentives, sealing its fate toward inevitable decline. It's a system skewed toward short-term fixes, ignoring the consequences piling up beneath. Central banks often accommodate debt by printing money, which increases inflation and erodes real value slowly but steadily. This policy is like applying a temporary balm to a wound that will not heal. Inflation reduces the real value of debt, but harms savers, pensioners, and those on fixed incomes. These side effects ripple through the economy, affecting social stability and wealth distribution. Public trust begins to shift as inflation shows up in everyday prices, growing skepticism toward the currency. This gradual loss of faith can accelerate quickly into a crisis once critical mass is reached. Understanding these flawed incentives shows why collapse is rarely sudden. Instead, it's a built-in process, unfolding over years and decades, masked by short-term fixes and public optimism. Recognizing these flaws early allows for detection and response before the system unravels completely. It offers a chance to mitigate risks and prepare for potential outcomes. Inflation is a key signal that systemic strain is increasing. Prices rise steadily, slowly eroding purchasing power and sowing doubt among consumers and investors alike. This creeping inflation affects every rung of the economic ladder. As people notice price rises in essentials like food, fuel, and housing, confidence in the currency's stability begins to waver among the public, triggering unease and cautious spending behaviors. Competing nations respond by devaluing their own currencies to boost exports. These competitive devaluations worsen instability globally, sparking currency wars and further undermining trust. This escalation intensifies pressure on prices and erodes trust in monetary systems worldwide. Financial markets become jittery, and the risk of systemic failure grows with every passing day. Flight from the currency often begins as people convert assets into safer alternatives such as precious metals, foreign currencies, or other stores of value. This behavior accelerates the currency's decline and raises volatility. Loss of faith fuels a rapid downward spiral. Panic accelerates the decline as individuals and institutions rush to exit the currency, deepening the crisis and spreading uncertainty. Prices may spike dramatically during this phase, creating shockwaves across the economy. These spikes are unmistakable signs of an imminent systemic crisis approaching. At this stage, normal policy tools lose their effectiveness. Attempts to stabilize the system often backfire, prolonging instability and increasing volatility rather than solving underlying problems. This is the breaking point where monetary policy often rewards short-term fixes that deepen and prolong the crisis rather than solve it. Examples include excessive money printing or interest rate manipulations that destabilize markets. Historical cases demonstrate that this escalation phase can last months or even years before the final collapse occurs. Patience is often tested, and patterns repeat as systems grow more fragile. Understanding this phase is key to identifying when a currency is at critical risk, providing crucial time to prepare and mitigate damage before collapse becomes unavoidable. The irreversible turning point marks the currency's final decline or outright abandonment, a moment of no return where previous conditions no longer apply. Trust collapses rapidly at this stage, triggering a mass conversion to alternative currencies, assets, or even barter systems, disrupting traditional financial order. Vivid examples like the Weimar hyperinflation and Zimbabwe crisis highlight this abrupt final phase. Both reveal how quickly a system can unravel once it passes this point, illustrating the dramatic speed and severity of collapse. During abandonment, the old currency loses all value almost overnight. Citizens find themselves scrambling to adapt to new realities, often facing hardship and confusion as monetary systems change abruptly. A new monetary system often follows, sometimes foreign-backed or digital, aiming to restore trust and economic order. These transitions can bring stability, but also come with challenges and risks. This final collapse is not randomness or error. It is the system's inevitable conclusion, given the built-in incentives and mounting pressures that have eroded it over time. Recognizing this turning point early can preserve wealth and provide time to prepare for the upcoming transition, avoiding the worst impacts of collapse. Ignoring these warning signs leads to loss and hardship, especially for those who rely on the currency daily. The human cost of collapse is often severe and widespread. Historical collapses show this path repeats across countries and eras, underscoring the universality of the pattern and providing important lessons for the future. Today, many currencies exhibit early or middle-stage warning signs that echo the patterns of past collapses. Observing these signs can offer crucial insights into their stability and risks. High national debt levels and rising inflation rates should not be dismissed lightly. These macroeconomic factors increase vulnerability to collapse, especially if coupled with political and social instability. Political incentives often favor short-term fixes over sustainable fiscal policies, perpetuating a dangerous cycle that undermines currency stability over time. Inflation rates rising beyond established target ranges serve as clear signals that the system is under stress and merits close scrutiny from policymakers and investors alike. The public's shifting trust can first be observed in flight to alternatives such as gold, cryptocurrencies, or foreign currencies. These behaviors signal diminishing confidence in traditional money. Early recognition and timely action empower individuals to preserve wealth and mitigate the worst effects of a collapse, providing practical advantages in uncertain times. Education about these patterns is vital. It equips people to make informed financial decisions and better understand risk management in a complex economic landscape. This understanding gains importance in a world marked by economic uncertainty and global financial interdependence, where risks can spread rapidly and unpredictably. Recognizing the early and middle stages of collapse gives you a critical edge. enabling better preparation and response to protect assets and opportunities. Understanding these repeating patterns offers more than insight. It offers practical advantage and resilience in the face of economic challenges.